The sooner I can pause a bad creative or scale a good creative, the better results we'll get.
We say a traffic manager needs screen time, but actually the more screen time someone has, which is how they develop a feel for it, the easier it will be for them to identify the main decisions they need to make in their day-to-day work.
Manual uploads took about 6 hours, but with DirectAds, it's just 5 minutes.
It's luck, 2 is coincidence,
Yeah.
3 is validated, 4 is for scaling. Welcome everyone, this is the first episode of Secrets of Traffic. And to kick off this podcast, there's no one better than someone I know is really in the game because he was part of my operation. He handled all the traffic management. He managed paid traffic, both YouTube ads and meta ads. And I invited him here because nowadays he's the CTO of DirectAds. So not only does he really know traffic, but he also developed a tool specifically for traffic management, just to give you an idea of his level of expertise. So I invited him here for us to launch this podcast. So welcome, Luca. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Thanks, man. It was an invitation. It's good to be here, seeing what we created from scratch taking shape, working, putting into practice everything we've used.
Nice. He came all the way from Votuporanga. Even though he works with me, guys, I think this is the second or third time I've seen him in person, right? I think in the digital world, we have a bit of that. People working online and ending up not seeing each other. That's pretty common in operations. And the idea here today, Secrets of Traffic, is really for us to understand a bit about your journey in traffic. How did you get started in traffic? Paid. What was the source you started with? And even what you did to scale to over 40 million last year. But go ahead, man. Tell us what you thought and how you got started in traffic. What was your first contact?
Good. Well, talking a little about myself first so people can get to know me a bit better, I'm Lucas Canavarro. My Instagram will be there if you want to follow me later. Actually, I have a degree in civil engineering. That's where I started working with numbers. Actually, before that, I also graduated in electronics. I've always been doing something different each time. Then I became an airplane pilot, electronics too. So I said, damn, my childhood dream was to be a pilot actually, right? So man, ever since I was a little kid, pilot, all that stuff. Then in college, a friend of mine started selling online, man. They started selling on the internet. I said, man, where is he? This guy's making money. My buddy right there. Then, boom, the guy started making 2,000 a month, 3,000, 5,000, 6,000. I said, man, what is this dude doing? And the guy was poor, He was really poor, like in college. You wouldn't expect anything from him. Out of nowhere, the guy started changing his life and all that. I said, what was this guy doing? I never had financial problems, My family was always pretty stable financially. We weren't rich, but it was okay.
As far as I'm concerned,
I didn't have big ambitions, But I saw the guy making money. Man, I want to make money too. So I started asking him what he was doing. Oh, I started selling online and stuff. At the time, man, 2018, maybe 2017, 2018, maybe even earlier. The internet was still like the Wild West, right? So I said, man, what can I do to sell? What am I going to sell, man? What skill? Am I going to sell? Am I going to sell as an affiliate? Am I going to create something? Then I thought, man, I already had some knowledge about investments at the time. I said, man, I'm going to try to sell this here. I'm going to start helping people with investments, finance, the financial market. I'm going to help people. So I started there, opened my Instagram, the usual. I started posting some little bits of content and stuff. People started asking me for mentoring. I started giving some mentoring sessions. When I realized it, at the time, I was already making more than an airplane pilot earned. Then I thought, damn, I'm not going to become a pilot. I was already a pilot, actually. I had already taken the course. I was taking the commercial pilot course. Then I said, man, I'm not going to become a pilot anymore. At that time, I was already making more than a commercial airplane pilot. I said, man, there's no way, dude. Later on, one day I'll just buy a plane and fly my own plane. But for now, let's go to the internet. So we started on the internet, boom. I've always been pretty self-taught, I was never really into taking courses unless it was something extremely specific. I like to get my hands on the tools and figure things out myself. Even if I have the path, I like to mess around with the buttons, every little button on the tool. So I started out selling a course. Actually, I started with online mentoring sessions on Google Meet and all that. Then I created my own course and started selling it on Hotmart. I did launches back in the Erico Rocha days, started applying his methodologies. That was back in 2018, 2019. And I actually got a pretty good result from the very first launch. I had a business partner at the time, so it was the two of us together. He saw that I was just doing mentoring sessions. At the time, that was fine for me. I wasn't selling any scalable product. It was really just mentoring. Then a buddy of mine from high school reached out and said, yeah, let's do something. Let's create a course or something. I said, sure, let's do it. We did it, and we sold pretty well. On the first launch, second launch, third. The highest revenue we hit in a launch following Erico Rocha's style was 55,000 reais. That was the peak we reached. We spent about 10,000 reais and sold 55,000 reais. And how did you guys
Handle the traffic back then?
Good question. At that time, traffic wasn't my specialty yet. Back then, I was focused on recording content. You were a content producer.
Right?
Exactly. A content producer, 100%. And my partner handled the traffic side.
Cool.
But then, man, at that time, I've always been the type to take things on, to pick up something that someone else isn't doing well and want to do it myself, wanting to get ahead. So, all right, we did this awesome launch, but after that, the revenue started to drop, the results started to go down. I said, man, what's going on? And that's when I started to look at traffic. I said, man, what's going on with this traffic here? So, at the time, we even ended the partnership. My buddy back then was kind of upset. We ended the partnership. And then I started running my own operation there for a while. I did a few more launches, but I still wasn't getting the top results I wanted yet.
I
said, damn, I already have all the expertise. At the time, after my partner handled the website, the traffic, and the more technical side, I focused on recording content, editing videos, and so on. So back then, I edited a lot of videos for YouTube. My YouTube channel even surpassed 15,000 subscribers, with videos getting 300,000 to 400,000 views. But doing that just didn't bring me any joy anymore, man. It didn't make me happy. I was burned out from the content, man. That's the truth. At the time, I even met L. He was a finance influencer too, right, man?
Yeah, he did too.
So we used to exchange tips back then. And we ended up getting close during that time. Right there. Then we lost touch. And then you invited me to the podcast, right, man? About finance. That's when we really got closer. But yeah, man, all good. I did that part, started managing my own traffic, did a few launches too, but it was far from what I wanted because, we start comparing ourselves to other people, right? There's this guy making over 100, 200,000, and at the time that really didn't do me any good. I was like, damn, man, I can't get past 30, 40,000 in a launch, and it seems like a lot of money, but, if you were following Erico Rocha's method, I was only doing a launch every 2 months. So, it seems like a lot of money, but then you add traffic, add this and that, and when you look at it, there wasn't that much left over in the end. No.
Nothing left, plus your cost of living too.
Cost of living, that was already, people
Think 30,000 every 2 months. A normal person, I would think like that, right? I used to think that. Like, I make 15,000 a month, but actually that's revenue, right?
revenue.
So to make 30, sometimes you spent 15.
Or
Or in other words, you had 15 left every 2 months. Man, 7.5. Wow. All right, 7.5. That's still okay, right? In the real world, per month. But there are a million other things, right? Tools, the risk you take, the stress of not knowing if you'll make any revenue or not. So you end up there, your cost of living too, and when you look at it, there's nothing left. No.
nothing's left.
You have to maintain a certain lifestyle too, even just to sell, right?
Yeah. So since I was already tired of creating content and not earning what I wanted, I said, man, I already have all the know-how. I was already working with traffic. I already knew how to edit videos, create a website. Back then it was a lot of WordPress and so on. I built websites, handled all the infrastructure, editing, basically content planning too. I thought, man, I already have all this knowledge. I'm going to try becoming a co-producer for other experts. At the time, this was back in 2021, maybe 2021, 2022. I said, man, I'm going to get other experts and get them up and running, and I'll stop myself, right? So I pretty much stopped producing content almost to zero. I disappeared from content creation and started reaching out to some influencers I noticed who had potential but were a bit uncertain. Check out this guy's strategy. I would approach some influencers. I spent quite a while working with some of them. Some were in finance, some in economics as well. Also in English. Influencers who sold English courses. So that's how I spent about 2 or 3 years there.
You spent all that time doing...
It was in 2000 that I joined Direct. It was in May 2024, right? So it was actually about 2 years. I was at it from 2022 to 2024. I kept at that pace.
Were you still working co-producer?
I did.
And at that time, how did you do things? Did you handle the traffic or not?
I handled everything. I did it all. At the time, I got some influencers to work with, teamed up with another partner of mine who did sales. He did sales for example, to create websites, I don't know. Yeah, like Estácio University, for example. Big universities here in Brazil. They said, damn, let's handle the traffic for the Estácio campus, something like that. So you,
Started out there doing local traffic, strictly speaking.
right? Yeah, exactly. So I already had that traffic know-how. I was running traffic for some influencers. So I had my own business where I had my influencers. I managed their business, did launches, sold.
Products. Were you like an employee or more like a partner?
It was a co-production, like a partnership.
Took on the risk as well, right?
Yeah, I took on the risk. I invested too and everything.
I see.
So I had this part of my business that I ran by myself, and there was another part with another buddy. He would prospect clients, and I handled the traffic, worked on the website for those clients too. That included colleges, other clients, their two local traffic, real estate agencies, and I managed that part as well. But I still wasn't earning as much as I wanted, you know? But then, what did I say? Man, I'm really enjoying this, dude. I'm liking it.
In this traffic part, so what was the traffic like for those? Because it's a traffic for DR is really different from local traffic, right?
It's a whole different vibe.
How did you do it back then? Did you just set up the campaign, optimize it, or did you just launch it and let it run?
We have this idea that with traffic, man, you have to be the expert of all experts. And sometimes you really do, but in general, doctor is very different from the real estate side, for example, if you're running local traffic. The volume and the organization are completely different. For example, in DR, we test, 40, 50, 60 creatives a day, sometimes per week. It depends on the operation. So, man, you have to be on top of every detail, every creative that's running, and every day there's something new going up.
Yeah.
With the local traffic here, it's completely different, right? It's different traffic. Different, put it that way.
I've never run traffic for a local business. How does it work?
So you have to look at it. Man, I'm running, for example, for Jundiaí. You're going to target Jundiaí. Let's say I'm running ads for a real estate agency, for example. So you go there and you test various types of campaigns, actually, various types of audiences. First, so you can screen who you're going to send, for example, to WhatsApp for prospecting. This will warm up your audience. It will first filter out those who are interested in real estate. So how did we do it? We would take, for example, a portfolio of properties, a property catalog that the real estate agency had, and run, for example, a video view campaign. We'd run a video view campaign there to filter out who was interested in watching those videos.
We'll make a video audience.
We'd create a video view audience there, for example, people who watched more than 75% of the video. Anyone who watched 75% of any video related to that content of mine. So we would produce that content. Who watched it? 75% of the video. They would move on to another type of ad.
Oh, you have to create a traffic funnel there.
Exactly. So first, videos to screen to do a triage.
To create desire in the person.
To see who has the desire, right? To see who has the desire and eventually to generate desire as well. So like they would show some catalogs there, different ads, right? For property X, for another property Y. Several of them just showing, not even trying to sell or anything. Just saying, oh, there's this property here, come check it out and so on.
And this traffic, for video view, it was cheaper than running it directly. Video traffic conversion, right?
Much cheaper. We would set up this video view, filter it by location, pick the area right in the center of the city of Jundiaí, and extend a radius of, 15 kilometers to each side, a 15-kilometer radius. All right, it would run in that region, or in specific regions if you wanted as well, depending on what the client wanted, right? Then the strategy would vary. But we'd set that radius, set up the video view for the type of property you wanted to sell, capture those video views, and filter only the audience who watched. 75%. Then, with that audience, we'd create another type of campaign, more focused on actually making the sale. So, inviting them to come and check it out, to visit the real estate agency.
Anyway,
to visit the property.
Was it more for pre-launch, launch?
Man, there was a bit of everything. But in general, it was more for buying properties they already had. It wasn't like launching a new building, for example.
Yeah.
It was more for residential properties, really, either for rent or for sale. That was the kind of traffic we would run. And then, right, after that first stage of filtering the audience, we would send them to other ads. Then with more of a real CTA, actually inviting the person to come and check it out, you know? So
we would then carefully filter through.
Exactly. We'd send them to WhatsApp. So it was a lead capture and we'd close the deal on WhatsApp to sum up the operation, right? So this, for example, was for real estate. We also did it for lead generation for schools, for colleges. It was the same approach.
So,
We would run it first. I really like this strategy, you know? Me, personally,
yes,
filtering the audience first because it's cheaper to do it that way. Yes,
it worked, right?
than if you try to run, for example, a direct conversion or direct WhatsApp lead capture. What happens a lot, maybe for those watching who run this type of audience or have done it before, is the thing that happens most is the business owner, when you're there as the manager, is the guy telling you that he's not reaching everything you're talking about, that he is.
And another problem that traffic managers also have with clients, like for those who run local traffic, is that unqualified leads are coming in, right?
Exactly, man.
The fact that you're already filtering with the video and so on, it already helps to better qualify, right? The lead already comes in more qualified. You don't have to wear yourself out so much with the client. Is that it? Yeah.
That's exactly it, man. That's when I had this insight. Because I used to run ads to a broad audience and all that. This
Strategy is powerful, huh? For traffic managers handling traffic.
local, and it gets first, right? If the main producer is going to complain because, damn, they're getting unqualified leads, they're spending money.
There's a cost, right? With the SDR, with the employee there, right? Back when there was AI, you could make an AI SDR.
Exactly.
But even so, traffic is more expensive, right? Conversion, everyone knows.
It's much more expensive, man. Way more expensive. And then at the time I started, because I like to keep things top notch, man, for whoever I'm serving, you know? I said, damn, I'm generating leads and the guy is saying it's messed up that they're not coming in. Good leads, or I told the guy that 50 leads came in and he said only 5 did. Damn, what's going on, man? That's when I started thinking about strategies to better filter this audience, and then I started doing like, damn, let's screen this audience better. Let's first run a video view campaign. That's when I started with this idea. Let's run a video view. We take the audience that watch the videos, and then, because it's much cheaper to run an engagement campaign right there, you know?
Yes, much cheaper.
Engagement, or video engagement in this case.
So,
We would first set up video engagement.
because the person doesn't leave the platform, right? Anything that takes people out of Meta Ads itself, out of Facebook, out of Instagram, out of Facebook, the
Auction is much more expensive, right?
anything where you try to take the person off the platform, they charge more for that.
So
Whenever you manage to keep the customer there, simply by providing a high quality user experience, Meta strongly prefers that kind of approach. And
then at the time, intuitively, I thought, damn, I think this is going to work out. Engagement I already knew was much cheaper. I thought, damn, what if I filter this audience first? Then actually run the lead generation there, inviting them to WhatsApp and so on, only for those who really watched those videos a lot. And then it worked, right? And the client started saying, hey, now the leads coming in are more qualified, right? So I managed to do this with the same client who used to complain before. I said, no, let me make some changes here. Let's see. And at the time, like I said, I wasn't into buying courses or like, oh, I'm going to buy a traffic course. No, I was always skin in the game, figuring things out on my own and all that. And then they started complaining that the leads were bad. So I said, man, I'll sort this out myself. So I dug into it myself, got it, understood this strategy, and thought I'll give it a try. And then with the same client, things started to go well. Then with new clients, it already started out like that, you know? I was already starting with this new approach, which always worked really well. So those were my early days. Then in traffic, local traffic,
you really started getting your hands dirty, right?
on my own, yeah. Because at the beginning, I started with training wheels, you know? There was someone who did it for me, then I went without training wheels.
And as a co-producer, how did you do it? Was there anything different?
As a co-producer, I tried to really follow Erico Rocha's approach at the time. Back then,
At that time,
it was very much about Erico Rocha. So what I did was the Super 2 and 3 launches I recorded with those experts, you know? Some of them. I was able to record in person here in São Paulo, even though I already knew others. Then it was remote. I had to give instructions and then the guy would send it to me. The content was raw, you know? Just the footage from his camera, the raw footage from his camera. That's it. And then I edited it myself, so it was a one-man team there. I did all the copywriting, all the structuring of the schedules, like when the launch would happen, which day would be CPL 1, 2, 3. So there was the traffic part, right? We would split it. I don't remember the exact percentages, but we would divide it like 40% goes to lead generation. Because there's
the budget, right?
a budget.
It's different from DR. You have a strategy, right? different from DR, where you just keep putting in unlimited money throughout the day. If it comes back, you put in more. There's no planning at all in DR. It's crazy.
The way it's going, you just keep increasing
The money in paid traffic for launches. I remember the guy saying, I want this launch. I want to invest 10,000 Rs.
exactly.
Do you remember more or less what strategy you used?
I remember, that's exactly it. We set the budget. So first we would talk to the expert, obviously, and say, hey, how much do you want to spend? How much do you have to spend? Let's see. Then we would set it there. I don't know. At the time, I don't remember the exact percentages, but it was something like 40% maybe for the lead acquisition part,
Right?
to invite them to the event. So we would invite the person to the event like, oh, it's going to be on January 1st, January 10th. Okay, cool. Then we would spend all that time sending people to a landing page, just a little page, capturing leads for the event, right? That was the method back then.
Yeah.
We'd capture leads there, or sometimes for a WhatsApp group as well, those quick launches that were popular at the time. Or we would capture leads for a WhatsApp list, for a WhatsApp group, or collect emails and so on to later send out an email blast and keep the lead, right? Warming up the person. So we would spend about 40% on lead generation, gathering that audience. And then on the actual launch day, I would open it up. It was about 30% of the budget. I think it was around there. 30%, 40% went there. And the other 10%, 15% we used for remarketing. Because then, man, we would target the leads from the list, which had everything there. Actually, the launch itself. On the day we opened the cart, we would already upload the entire list of leads, right? Either phone number or email there, preferably both.
Yes.
We would upload the entire lead list there as a custom audience on Facebook. And we would run ads first only to that audience. For example, the launch would last almost a week, a full week. We would run ads for at least the first 2 or 3 days just for that audience.
Remarket to show them CPL.
Remarketing to get them to watch the CPL, and remarketing for those who actually reached the checkout or opened the page, right? If someone opened the sales page already, we would also run a remarketing campaign for them. And then, damn, we used Pixel at the time, everything set up properly, right? So there was remarketing both with Pixel for those who entered the checkout or entered the page, and remarketing for those who participated in the launch at any point.
The operational level of organization for a launch is significantly more complex than for disaster recovery.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's that you have to anticipate, you have to make a very well-planned schedule, right?
Yes.
Because damn, if you mess up by even one day or even just the ad account, thank God what I was running at the time was white. So back then, I didn't know about these contingency things, having a bunch of accounts, backups. Man, I was using just one account. I had never lost an ad account.
Yes.
So I had no idea that could even happen, you know? But thank God it never happened. In the middle of a launch, losing an account. But man, just imagine you're running a launch and you lose the account. So you really had to plan those dates carefully. Like from this day to that day, you have
To be ready and all that.
You have to be ready. You have to prepare the media you're going to run, the ads you're going to run, the creatives. Everything has to be prepared beforehand.
You're crazy.
So man, you had to plan it out. Like the launch is going to be on the 10th. So by the 7th, all the CPLs have to be recorded, all ready to go. In practice, sometimes it didn't really happen like that, right? Because the guys, the experts, they're all over the place too. So like while CPL 1 is running, the guy is recording CPL 2.
To edit and
It was a rush, man. It was a rush. Some people managed to stick to the schedule and record everything properly, but it was still a rush. I mean, we managed to get it done, right? And
today, having experience with DR and having experience with launches, right? Launches never reached the same volume as DR did, right? Because it was still at the beginning. But for a traffic manager, if you could choose, like I'm going to run DR and I'm going to run launches, which side would you go for?
no, today I would go with DR, man. And
Why?
DR, you kind of see the results right away, you know, from what you're doing. You can, at least for me, I'm the kind of person who likes to test things and get feedback right away to see if it worked or not.
Immediate, right?
Immediate. With launches, man, you spend several days on it. Then, man, when the launch is over, you have to hunt down where you went wrong. Sometimes it's not that clear where you made a mistake.
Debrief the launch.
Debrief the launch. With DR? No, man. With DR, you pretty much have the whole funnel ready right there. It's simple, right? A landing page, the creative, the offer, the checkout, and a sales video.
And
The product there eventually could even be an affiliate offer. You don't even need to do all the work of building the product structure and delivering it. There are already ready-made products with affiliates.
just in terms of operational traffic, which one is harder?
Oh, that's tough. DR traffic is way more demanding because you scale up a lot, ads all at once every day. And
Launch, you scale up.
with a launch, man, if you manage to plan it well, you can even set up that scheduling, right? You can use that Facebook scheduling tool.
Yeah.
Set the schedule for this ad here, for this campaign from Monday to Tuesday midnight. And you can set it up 3 days in advance and it will follow that exact schedule. You don't have that kind of dynamic. This thing is already set up. You're not going to keep changing things in the middle of the launch.
Yeah.
Unless you have a huge team, a top tier launch, and then you see the ad isn't performing well. But that's a whole different situation, right? I'm talking about average sized launches. But with DR, no, man. With DR, you launch an ad in the morning and you already know it has to make sales once it spends X reais, X dollars. You already know it has to sell. If it doesn't sell, then I know something's wrong. But
During the launch, didn't you control the cost per lead?
we controlled everything, man.
You had to keep,
Hardly.
there wasn't a DR dynamic of duplicating campaigns to bring down the cost per lead
No, back then we would just increase the budget. Increase it.
or decrease it.
We would increase or decrease the budget directly in the existing campaign. And we didn't go around duplicating campaigns like...
I didn't even know about that strategy.
I didn't even know.
Back when I did launches too, I couldn't even imagine it. You'd launch the campaign. If the cost per lead changed, you'd get upset. You had
In order to do this,
record more creatives. You had to record more creatives and launch another campaign.
that's how it was, man.
But we didn't really think much about traffic strategy itself. Like, I'm going to test ABO, I'm going to test CBO.
No.
It was more about following the approach of Eric Orocha, Pedro Sobral,
Simple stuff, man.
audience exclusion, letting the campaign run and hoping it works out, right? Derek gets more into specific paid traffic techniques,
Exactly.
strictly speaking.
Before DR. Still, before getting into direct. Back then, I even bought the perpetual course. I think it was Misha's.
Misha,
Escola do Perpétuo. I bought it. That was right before I joined direct, man. That's when I started applying it, and it was the perpetual thing that made me the most money at the time. It was a travel product. We sold travel itineraries. That's when I started applying perpetual, and that's when I actually began to understand a bit more about traffic management, like testing different traffic structures like CBO, ABO, 1, 3, 1, 5, 1, putting more than one creative in the same campaign to see what happens. That's when I started, in this course, I started to get a bit more of what a traffic structure was, about testing, structured tests, how to run a pre-scale, and then move into scaling. It wasn't at the level of detail of DR, which is more... It's not that it's more... The structure is very similar, but in DR, it's much more... I can't even explain it. The whole thing is just stronger.
with 1DR. The perpetual is 1DR already, right? I think it's just the school of, I think these are phases, right? The launch guy, at least in the market phase. There was the perpetual with Michel Menez, Ladeirinha.
Ladeirinha. But they come every single day. Yeah.
They kind of created a perpetual model there, but with the same launch mentality.
No?
It wasn't that hardcore thing.
Wow. Yeah, no.
Then came the phase of Fint of Kaique, which is PLR, which is DR, right there in the veins, all about performance, about scaling hard,
And
etc.
and damn, before we had that idea of, oh, let's let the campaign mature, I don't know what, and that maturity never came. It never came, man.
The campaign was never optimized.
There was the campaign was in learning phase, just sitting there. They didn't learn a damn thing.
Eternal learning phase.
Man, the learning phase, like, that's the truth. If your creative is good, it's going to sell really fast, man. And I only realized that at the very end of that travel thing I was doing. Because, man, before I kept trying to reuse the same creative there. Eventually, a sale would come through. There was even some margin, but nothing special. But after I started talking to Elle again, because at the time, we started talking again because of
Investments.
investments. We went about 3 or 4 years without talking to each other. And then I started posting content again, but
About digital marketing.
at the time, that's when Elle and I started talking again. He started giving me some tips and stuff. At the time, I didn't even know about VTurb. I was running VSL on YouTube, just so you have an idea.
Old school.
So I say that I really started to get the hang of traffic, really of a structure that actually sells after talking with Elle. He said, damn, do you have Cloudflare on your site? I said, no, man.
Make the site fast.
Put Cloudflare on it. Got it.
It's just that doctor is high. Performance in everything, right?
Exactly.
Even though it's very simple, it's not. Even though it's very easy, it's not simple, right? Or even though it's very simple, it's not easy. There are a lot of details. It's
Bits.
So you have to look at the page speed, connect rate.
Every little detail there matters. You
Measure the headline there with the vterb hooks. Anyway, there are a lot of details there. You have to keep an eye on retention.
yes.
So for someone looking from the outside, if you tell a friend, oh, I do this here, you show a creative sometimes seriously and say, oh, I know how to do this. But when you look behind the scenes of someone running a DR operation who has to pay attention to things like the creative's hook rate, pass-through rate, CPC, micro lead, page speed, you switch to a different server. Back then it was WordPress, building HTML pages. Nowadays it's really easy, right? There's Atomicat, which is Vinicius, our friend. Much faster. And back then it was like WordPress, super basic.
It was WordPress, Pressman. There were those extensions. Rocket, I don't know what.
And
And then you would tweak it like crazy, man. Your page would barely improve. WP
Rocket.
Rocket. Then you'd turn something off, enable some minify or script thing, and the site would crash, man. Damn, for fuck's sake. Then you'd try to go back, but it wouldn't go back the same. It was. So you ended up making your site worse. Shit. Atomicat really helped a lot, man. We use and have used Atomicat a lot, right?
And
It really makes a difference, man. It makes a difference. So I say that's when I started getting real traffic. Even so in the DR, man.
all right, so you arrived then. Recapping, right? You kind of started out as a local traffic manager, but a co-producer before in the traffic area, right? Before becoming an expert and all that. You ran traffic there with a lot of people have already run ads in their lives, just hit play and let it run, not really worrying much about the strategy, even though you wanted to. You already had some seeds planted, but no one told you it was as important as it really is, right? That you were already thinking about traffic strategy, right? Running video views, you had already noticed it was cheaper and all that. It was just for the co-production later on, right? You were already there. At the same time, along with the traffic, you dropped the local traffic and stuck only with the travel project. Is that what you said?
Yes, I quit at the time.
That's when you started getting more results, started paying more attention to traffic, but still didn't have the DR mindset. To check daily if he turned it on, hit play there, how the traffic was going.
No, I did check daily, but I didn't have that perspective of like quickly realizing when a creative was bad, you know?
Could I do something to improve it, right? Yeah.
I didn't have that performance, like speed mindset. So, for example, my creative had a ROAS of, at the time, our break-even ROAS was like 1.15, really chill.
Info products.
So, like, I was at 1.25, I'm making a profit, it's fine. I didn't have that mindset of, damn, man, this needs to hit 2-3 rows, you know? I didn't have that perspective. It's positive. So, I wasn't stuck in that constant cycle of having to perform.
Just obsessing on making profit.
In that obsession of, damn, man, if this creative starts to go bad, it'll die off really quickly. Because, damn, the ROAS is extremely tight. I didn't have that perspective, damn, like, let's look at the hook rate, let's re-record this creative, let's lateralize it to test other strategies in traffic. None of that existed. It was extremely simple, really. So, I don't know, if we tested one creative per week, let's say 3 creatives, every 2 weeks we would test.
Wow.
That was very little. It was very little, very little. Today, the perspective is totally different.
For the people running traffic with Expert, whether it's for BSL, Perpetual, right? Now, things are starting to change a bit. People are beginning to adopt this direct response mindset with Expert, which I think is going to be the next phase, actually. Like, people are really starting to use Expert for real. Instead of running launches, run direct response, the real deal, focused on performance. But then the traffic manager who's just following this method, just running ads, is going to get left behind.
They're going to get left behind, man. Why does that happen? Back in the day, Facebook worked on an auction system, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a competition between several players. Whoever pays more, their ad gets shown more. That's basically it. And before, in the past, the competition was smaller. I'll say there were few people, but way fewer people than today running traffic.
For sure.
Today, I don't know, the number of people running traffic has tripled or quadrupled. Nowadays, even a bakery runs ads these days.
That's true, right?
So, like, what does that do? That makes your ads more expensive. So, damn, if you don't have that mindset of testing your creative quickly understanding what's going wrong and changing it right away, you're just going to burn money. And a lot of people are going to take a big loss, right? They will.
They'll wait.
Hoping to get lucky. So, damn, what's the perspective I see today for this, especially for this audience? It's about testing a lot more creatives, a large volume of creatives, while spending less on each one. because you don't need to wait or spend a lot of money to understand. In the past, I used to think you had to let a creative run with a lot of money to validate it. Nowadays, no, damn it. Facebook is extremely optimized. It understands the audience you want to target based on your video well, the audience you set, the media, it takes the copy from your video, it listens to the video.
A quick note, if you still don't know what DirectChats is, basically, DirectChats is a tool for you to hide your offers, hide your creatives, and launch campaigns in bulk very quickly. So if you run at Bahian Scale, Soviet scale, or need to launch a lot of campaigns, a lot of creatives per day, test,
click link in bio,
act,
free trial. So targeting is more about the creative, especially now with Doctor, right? So there was that phase with local business, with the producer Bara, local business, then until you joined the company and started. Let's skip the part where he started as a project manager and so on until he ended up in traffic. Paid traffic because he already had experience too. And what did you notice was different when you started looking at it? The traffic, paid traffic for a DR company. That was already making multiple 7 figures just starting out per month. In this case, not even per day yet. Nowadays, you have to do that per day, right? At the
time it was per month that we were running things in Brazil. What was the first shock? You said, wow, what is this? This is different. What did you learn back then?
I noticed that things move really fast, man.
Yeah.
Everything is super fast, So, for example, for those who run traffic for agencies, it's even a pain sometimes, right? Leaving it in the agency's hands, sometimes there's no performance. But for those who work with agencies, man, things move slower. At Doctor, no, man. When I joined Direct, we'd test a creative. Man, they'd say, this creative has already spent too much. I'd look at it, and in my mind, it hadn't even spent that much, man. The average ticket is $400, $300, 1,500 Rees. Man, let's spend 1,000 and something on it. They'd burn through the money, man. So like sometimes with just 200 Rees spent on that creative, you already knew, man. Based on its retention, we started to look, man. We looked at the metrics in extreme detail. It's insane. We'd look at the VSL retention with that creative
retention.
You start making some matchings that you wouldn't normally do in regular traffic, man. Even on VTurb. This
feature exists on VTurb?
It does. Exactly, it's on VTurb. You can see there, on that VSLX, which creatives are retaining.
Guys, this right here, I'm even going to emphasize this. For those who are copywriters and traffic managers, it's something that very few people pay attention to. Very few, extremely few people. Usually when you talk to people, it's about CPA, CPC, CPM, but retention of that creative in that VSL. It's a metric that lets you anticipate a lot before burning money.
Because
you can see that retention is already low from the very beginning. So it's not because the CPC is good, the CPC is within range, but the CPC is bringing in a very unqualified audience. How do you know they're unqualified? Because the retention is low.
Exactly. And
consequently, you'll see that you won't make any sales.
Yeah. So you don't need to wait for your CPA, your cost per acquisition to find out.
I didn't even remember that. We used to do it and it worked.
Used to do it and we created automation for that. That's it, man. So we were able to, the traffic, it's just in the ad manager. No, it's not, man. A good traffic manager looks at all of this,
They're looking at the big picture, right?
They're looking at the big picture, but they're also looking at the entire funnel from like the ad that showed up on the client's phone all the way to this sale and even post-sale eventually, right? So damn, it's not just about looking at your part, just looking at the traffic here like, oh, the CPC is this much, the CPM is... No, man. You have to look at, damn, this creative that's running. It doesn't need to spend 600 rays for me to know it's bad. You can see, damn, what was the retention of this creative in this VSL, in this offer here, XYZ.
What was the lead specifically?
Exactly. And damn, in the first 100, 200 reads there, with that specific lead, in that VSL, you can already tell that the creative isn't going to sell, Obviously, this feeling. We call it a feeling, but it's actually a method, right?
It's a method. It's a method. It's a method that you learned over time and
you didn't map it out. Your brain knows how to do it intuitively, but you can put it down on paper and understand the process, right?
That's it. The feeling is... I think there is a feeling, right? Which is what you said. You just mentioned it's already in your head. And for you to be able to personalize it, there's a gap there. There's a valley there. Because if you sit down to try to map out all of your intuition, that's the hardest part. For example, we talk about traffic managers. They need screen time. But actually, the more screen time someone has, which is how you develop that intuition, the easier it gets. They'll be able to map out their main day-to-day decisions more easily.
Exactly. And pass it on to the team, right? That's it. Because as you evolve, you start to pass it on. You need to pass that intuition of yours to your team. And then you start thinking, damn, what is it that I do that actually works? And it's extremely complex, right? But a good traffic manager, that's what they do. They don't just look at, oh, CPM, CPC. No, they're looking at everything, damn it. So what is a good traffic manager going to do? You spent, I don't know, instead of spending 500 REAs to make a sale with just 100 REAs, you already saw that Creative X isn't working, it's not engaging. You don't even need to run it. The 500 REAs, that is, you save $400, you'll be able to use on maybe a better creative, and on top of that, you'll already be giving feedback to your team, to your editing team, to your copywriting team. Say, damn, this kind of creative here isn't working out. This
Format here isn't good.
It's not in a good format. And then, man, that's what changed my perspective in DR, bro. Because I never thought it would go to this level, to this point of detail. That was one of the details, right? There are many other details. Like, we could spend hours here, like looking at the details of micro videos, looking at the details of checkout conversion with the video. Anyway, there's a lot you can do. Ideally, you shouldn't get into this. Not keep nitpicking so much, you know? But it's always good to take a general look at the metrics and see which are the key metrics for you to achieve a profit margin on that product, on what you're selling. So for example, we gave this overview here of retention in the VSL by creative. There's also the creative's play rate, which is an extremely top of funnel metric. If the play is too expensive, your connect rate is messed up.
Cost per play, right?
Cost per play, right? CP play. That's what we used to call it.
How did you calculate this CP play there?
How did I do it? Let's go. Normally, what do we look at? We look at the connect rate and retention, right? The lead, actually, right? Retention and the lead.
First minute?
First minute there of the VSL. What did I think? I said, damn, the sooner we can pause a bad creative, that was always my perspective. The sooner I can pause a bad creative or scale a good one, the better results we'll get.
More money left over.
More money left over. So damn, how can I pause a bad creative quickly? Then I started looking, damn, the first metric is impressions, right? The metric the client asks about, how many impressions did your creative get? Impressions aren't great because, damn, you can't filter engagement by impressions.
The problem with CPM is that if your creative is clickbait, the impression is going to be really cheap.
Exactly.
But if it's clickbait, like when I say clickbait, it's a meme creative, something that's purely entertainment. People share it and all, but it won't sell.
Exactly.
So starting from the principle that it's a creative, with copy with a CTA, sending people to the VSL, then okay, it's worth looking at CPM, but it's a metric that's very easy to manipulate.
To get distorted, right?
Distorted. That's the word. It's a metric that's very easy to get distorted.
All right then, man. After the impression, what's the next step? It's for the person to click. Almost the same problem as clickbait happens here too, right? You might not be filtering exactly the audience segmentation you want. All right then, what's the next metric? It would be the page view. But also, I think that can happen too. The metric I thought like, damn man, the person is engaged. It's when the person hits play on your VSL because then they've seen the headline and even so, they hit play, man.
That's already a bigger step than cost per landing page, right?
Cost per landing page. It's a bit better.
It is a little better.
There will be fewer people who hit play. It'll be a more qualified audience, a little more expensive. But I know if people are hitting play at a good average cost, because then you already need to have actually the average cost per play of good creatives that have worked for you. You
need to have control over the creative that's selling.
You need to have control over the creative that's already selling. That's exactly what we used to do. So we already knew like a good creative of ours that sells with a good margin, with good rows, has a cost per play of, I don't know, 8 reais, for example. I know that on average, creatives with a cost per play of 8 reais tend to sell. Because damn, if I got the guy there and he played it, that's great. He's already more qualified than just a page view or a click anyway. So how did I usually control things so I could stop a creative earlier? So I wouldn't spend too much money on it, or to already know if it had a chance to perform well. The cost per player was my first metric. So actually I won't say I never looked, but after I joined Direct, I started picking up on these patterns. I stopped looking at CPM and I stopped looking at CPC. That probably sounds totally crazy to a traffic manager.
True.
I didn't look at it.
Usually when you talk to people, they say, why, but what about your CPC? Yeah. What about the CPC in the weight loss niche? What about the CPC in the ED niche? Exactly. That's how the conversation goes. Like, man, I didn't even know what my CPC was.
I had no idea what my CPC was. So sometimes even with L, like he talks to other operations, he would come with this talk like, oh, hey, what's your CPC? And I'd say, man, you have
To check.
here. I know the CPP. I know the CPP, cost per play. But we had this whole funnel in the spreadsheet, right? So I would look and tell him everything was there.
We
We had the CPM metrics.
CPC, but it wasn't the metric you had top of mind like fresh.
It wasn't because I was looking at the CPP, man, because it always gave me the CPP. For me, that was the main metric, you know? So I think the traffic manager, man,
And telling the people, how did you manage to have the integrated CPP? Because people don't have that. That metric,
you
invented it. I invented it. No one has ever heard of that. That's the most important metric in direct marketing.
the CPP, how did I do it? There are several ways you can do it, but one that we used, which worked well and was more practical for us, was because we were already using a tool called HeadTrack at the time. Then HeadTrack, you are able to add your own scripts here for specific actions that your client is taking on your page. So for example, I can put it's like a pixel if you think about it. Pixel. A pixel in practice, yes, but it's really easy to set up. For me, right? Actually, it's not that easy, no. No,
It's not easy.
it's not easy at all, man. We have this bias of thinking things are easy, but it's really not. But anyway, I used to put VTurb there. In VTurb, there's a tab for pixels where you can add custom pixels. And there I would put this little head track script
So that
when the person hit play. No. Second, 0-0-0-0, he would fire at the head track. He would send a shot to the head track. It would register there. There was a play.
there was a play, and
And then I had how much I spent on that ad and how many plays it got.
with retention as well, right?
Then I would go further, right? I would put it in the VSL pitch, for example, the pitch at 45 minutes. I would add another little script at 45 minutes. And then instead of having to go into Viterb to check the metrics, I created a big dashboard that had everything. A dashboard, a big table. You
Already knew, then comes that question, but okay, how am I going to see which creative is performing well in terms of retention?
exactly. That
Then you would look there like cost per retention. Did you look at that too on a daily basis?
cost per retention. I used to call it cost per pitch.
Cost per pitch. Yeah.
The pitch, cost per pitch. I looked at that too, and we already had. Why is that? Sometimes the cost per play is good, which was my main metric. At first, for me, sometimes to just kill off a creative that's messed up, it's the first one I looked at.
Eventually, I even created some kind of rule.
I created several rules, also using HeadTrack and other tools. But I made this rule that would automatically pause depending on the cost per play. Man, I already knew. Oh, creative bad. And I didn't just look at the average cost per play, man. If you look at the average will fool you. You have to look at the creative that performed well. Yeah,
Stay in control.
you have to have control over the creative that performed well and look at how it started out. Don't look at like the entire period. Because over the period that a creative runs for several days, several weeks, it starts to get kind of saturated.
Yes.
So your cost per play starts to go up. Just like CPC and CPM, it keeps going up. One kind of reflects the other, right? Yes, your cost per play keeps going up. So you can't just look at like only the end, the cost per play. You have to see what the average cost per play was for the creative at the very beginning. How did it do in the test? In the next days of the test, after I started scaling, how did it perform? It was based on that metric. If it stayed consistent, so it was based on that metric that I set my cost per play threshold to turn off a bad campaign. Like I have this campaign with Creative X. How is the cost per play in the first 200 reais? The average for the creative when it performed well was 8 reais at the very beginning. If this creative already started off at 13, 12 reais, 14, I don't know. There was already a rule that, oh, if it spent 100 reais and the cost per play is 14, kill the campaign.
Yeah.
So, like, that was one of the rules. I kept thinking, damn, does this actually work? Then I did a big study, right? I took several creatives that we tested and looked to see at this number, like 12 reais, for example. Can you kill it? Yeah.
It has to be based on every single niche and every single offer.
Each niche, each offer, it's something extremely personalized, you know, for the offer itself, right? It's not something you can apply to just any, especially a new offer. It's tough, right? If you already have an average for the niche, then it's great. Like, oh, I've already run several offers in the vision niche, memory niche, anyway, any niche. I've already run them, so I kind of know the baseline, the average for that niche, then yes, then it works. But if you're running a product you've never run before, or a niche you've never worked with, or an offer you've never tested, then it's hard to already have those metrics, right? So you have to run it for a bit, and eventually you'll take a few small losses until you adjust that, figure out what actually works for you, and then, yes, you'll have the metrics to start creating those little rules. But in the beginning, there's no way, man. At first, you'll kind of have to take a bit of a gamble and collect metrics, right? It's like you're paying to collect the metrics.
Yeah.
So you'll have higher expenses at the beginning. After you already have those metrics, then damn, it gets easy. Then you already know, damn, my cost per play here has to be less than 12 for an offer, for a creative to perform well. So right away, I can already save a lot of money. So that's the first barrier to entry. There, the cost per play, for me, right? My strategy, guys. Then you do whatever you want. Everyone adapts it however they want, right? I'm just sharing my reasoning here. All right, what was the next metric? What was the next event I was tracking in my little funnel? It was the play, and after the play, the pitch.
Yes.
So I also had my pitch metric on my dashboard. And then I also knew what my cost per pitch was for an offer to work, for an offer to generate ROAS. And I calculated this, obviously. I'm aiming for a ROAS of, I don't know, the break-even point for your operation, so you're not making a loss or a profit, is a ROAS of 1.6. We aimed for more. We aimed for that. 2.2, 2.3, sometimes even higher. But we knew what the cost per play was for a creative to break even. Cost per pitch as well, cost per checkout. Everything I said about play applies to all the other metrics I used, for example. Which ones were important to me? I even choked up here, man. Cost per play. After play, I looked at the cost per pitch. What's the next metric after pitch? It's checkout. Cost per checkout. After checkout, I also tracked clicks on the checkout button and how many actually reached the checkout. So I could see if my transition was good, if there wasn't any problem there, right? That's important.
Connect rate on checkout versus
checkout connect rate, exactly. And I knew the price of each of these metrics for a creative to perform well. And I had rules for each of these metrics, automated rules already. So damn, if the checkout cost is X and it's already spent a certain amount, kill it. And that's not just for creative testing, right? What I said was kind of aimed at testing, but not just for testing. After a creative is validated, damn, when is it considered validated? There, we validate. I like to validate with 4 sales. The people sometimes validate with 1, with 2. But my concept of validated is 4. Why? Because with 1 sale, man, you basically have no sample size. How is that thing you say, man? 1 is...
The first is luck, the second is coincidence, and the third is a trend. It's validated, and 4 is scale.
Yeah, it was with 3 or 4 sales that I would validate. I think for a long time it was 3, then I changed it to 4. Yeah.
Which is 1 is luck, 2 is coincidence, 3 is validated, 4 is scale.
That's it. That's exactly it. That's right.
That's what I
understood. Exactly. It's his, really. So that's what happened. So damn, with 4 sales, I would say, no, this creative, here, let's scale. Because 4 sales, man, that's not a coincidence. It's validated, great, the ROAS is good. We would send the creative to scale sometimes on the same day. Or for the next day, actually, right? Because we would launch it there at midnight.
let it run.
Let it run all day there with a little CPA, more or less. Oh, we're making sales there. How much did we put in? At the time, it was just a CPA. It was a CPA that we said, let it run all day. Eventually, some really good creatives would get 4 sales in the same day, man. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4. But the creatives with 3 sales sometimes didn't scale, while the ones with 4 sales had something special. It's rare for a creative to get 4 sales. On the first day, it usually didn't go well, man, and it was rare to get 4 sales on the first day, sometimes on the second day, but the ones that really scaled were the ones with 4 sales. On the same day, I would say, man, this creative here isn't going to make you rich, bro.
It's life-changing stuff.
Really, we're talking about changing your life here, and so I looked at all these metrics because I already knew quickly on the same day whether a creative had potential or if I could just kill it off and tell the editing team. And copy say, man, this one is dead. And of course, we had spreadsheets to keep track of all this, right? Nowadays, there are dashboards, things are more advanced, but back then, it was just a Google Sheets spreadsheet with those Google scripts that would go into the tracker and pull the data. It would organize the spreadsheet right there. And then back when we scaled up last year, when we scaled to 40 million, I was running things there, and we used some trackers where you couldn't tell what time something happened. the sale, right? You just knew there was a sale, that the ROAS was X, and that was to close out the previous cycle, right? To close out the previous cycle of metrics. So I would look at these metrics: play, pitch, checkout, and sale. Those were the metrics I looked at in detail,
in that order.
and I would create rules for each one of them, right?
I think it's important for you to tell me. Like, you would leave. Isn't it because the ideal cost per play was 30 reais, for example? Or, I don't know, 8 reais? You set the rule to kill it at 8 reais. No. You would leave a margin there.
I'd leave.
But you wouldn't lose a potentially good creative, right?
Exactly. That's important too. It's extremely important because let's say your cost per play is 8 reais. You spent 8 reais and didn't get a single play. Should I kill it? No. Hold on. You should let it spend at least, man. For example, if the CPA is 500 reais, can you save money if your cost per play is 8 reais, for instance? Damn, instead of letting it spend the full 500 reais, you set a minimum threshold there. Back then, I would do the analysis at the offer level to understand what that number was, right? I can't kill it with 8 reais either.
You need to have a minimum spend
I would set a minimum.
for sampling.
For play, the minimum was 150 reais. If it hit,
150 ray. And the play was far too expensive.
exactly.
Kill it. So
For
people to understand, right? Because otherwise people will just set a rule for cost per play at 8 rays and 0 cents and think it's all good. It will kill all the creatives. Because during the day, that play gets really expensive. It's just like the stock market. The graph goes up, then comes back down, and at the end of the day, it's 8 rays. So you need to give it some room, sample size, so it can perform well.
you need to have a minimum sample size there, and then each person comes up with their own number. But I used to leave about 5 or 6 times the value of my metric. If my play was 8 reels, I would let it run up to around 60 reels, 50 reels. This is just an example, but that's about the average.
I remember it was even up to 10 times, more like 10 times 1. So the cost is 10 Brazilian reals, and you spend 100 Brazilian reals at least.
This is for cheap metrics. For checkout, it's already messed up. But for cheap metrics, it works really well. Yeah,
For checkout, it gets.
expensive. If the checkout is 200 reels, you're going to spend 2,000 reels.
The idea is for people to understand that today, the biggest, if you have an operation, if you're a traffic manager or the owner of an operation, you know that the biggest expense today, it's with testing.
It's testing. Yeah,
Creative testing, VSL testing, micro lead testing, product testing. So we started optimizing our operation to reduce testing expenses,
exactly.
but simply cutting costs isn't enough, or you won't let the creatives sell.
Let it run briefly.
We took a while to understand this logic until we finally got it. Rolling a die 10 times and getting a 1 every time, the probability is really small, 1 in 10. Roll 10 ones in a row, that's 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah, no, it's
Different.
exactly.
So we have to get a sample there, damn it. One play for 8 rays won't kill you, no. At least 10 plays, 20 plays, and it's more or
Less,
like that.
let it run quite a few plays then.
Calculate it by the amount spent, right? If you spent 100 reais, 150, then that's enough.
That's it. Let it run for a bit. That's
For the others as well, or not?
for the others too, but then this multiplication factor starts to change a bit because the other metrics are more expensive. So like a play is 8 rees, the pitch goes to 30 rees, the checkout goes to 90 rees, and the sale goes to, I don't know, 300 rees. Yes. So you have to keep reducing that factor. Otherwise, in the end, you're letting it spend 3,000 rees just to make one sale, and that doesn't make sense. Yeah, in the
And it has to be 1 to 2, right? At least half of the CPA has to be a sale.
exactly. To get a ROAS of 2 for us, that would be great. You used to spend like your CPA has to be 500, your product is 1,000, that's okay. You're at a ROAS of 2.
Yes.
That's it, exactly. So you have to fit within these metrics. It's not just, damn, Luca said it, so do it. No. Damn, every operation is different, right? You have to understand what makes sense for you. The
The important thing is what I can achieve. But that's something new, huh? I've never seen anyone talking about that on the internet. It was something really exclusive to us.
it was all ours, really.
I've never heard. Maybe obviously there's always someone who has thought of it before. But it was something 100% original
100%.
for our operation. And it's extremely replicable, you know? I think the people who watched the episode and made that face already.
Yes.
It was already worth watching up to this point, man.
So, yeah, all right. That cycle there, I think that's it for this part. Then
We were talking about. All right, then. To sum up, you looked at the metrics. Cost per play, cost per pitch, checkout, and sale in that order.
That's right.
To try to reduce the spending. And then what else did you look at? You mentioned there was something about timing and all that. What else did you pay attention to that's different from what most people talk about? We're focusing on breaking away a bit from the standard approach that people usually take, right? Creative testing, ABO, we'll talk about that later. But to sum it up, let's focus on what's really different, what we did there that really set us apart.
At the time, we had the insight. Actually, since I have pretty bad ADHD, I never remember things that just happened. So, for example, the traffic manager at DR, he used to optimize at the time. That's how we did it. We would optimize every hour, right? So, for example, at 11 a.m., you do an optimization, right? Increase the budget here, kill off some campaigns there, and then, okay, at noon you do it again, then at 1 in the afternoon. But what would happen with me? What would happen at DR, right? We had a ton of campaigns, man.
Yeah, we did.
We had like 200 campaigns, 400 campaigns in a single day. Me, man, how am I supposed to remember how the campaign was doing? What was the ROAS of campaign B in the previous hour? I'm not going to remember, man. I said, dude, I'm screwed, man. How am I supposed to increase the budget of a campaign if I don't even know if it performed well in the last hour? Because it had 3 sales at 10 in the morning. Then I check at 11, the ROAS is good. But it still only has 3 sales. I don't know if it sold or not in this last hour. That was the problem. I don't remember if it sold or not. I said, man, how am I supposed to increase the budget or not? The ROAS is good, okay? It's a ROAS of 5. Should I keep increasing it even though there haven't been any sales? That doesn't make sense to me. How am I supposed to increase it if it hasn't even sold?
That's important too. That's important because generally, what's the flow of the market, including what I taught him at the time? Man, if you have a ROAS of 2, ROAS of 3, keep increasing the budget. But in practice, so people understand where this pain point came from, right? In practice, what would happen? If you run ads, you've probably seen this happen. There's a creative there that, I don't know, already makes 3 or 4 sales during scaling. It's giving you 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 reais in profit. You start increasing the budget and you see you gave back all those 3,000 reais in profit. And you ended up breaking even. So it was something that we started to think like, man, just from 4 or 5 campaigns here, we lost 1,000 reais here, 2,000 there, 800 over there, 3,000. We'd lose 10, 15,000 reais. In a day, we'd miss out on earning, right?
We'd lose profit.
We lost it because we'd already earned it. It's like a certain daytime mindset, like trading, right?
You and only you.
You only think you've won when you finish the day, when you lock in the profit. But actually, you'd already lost, I don't know, 5, 10, depending on the scaling at the time.
Every day you add up all the days of the month. When
monthly totals were shocking. And another thing,
we
lost 100,000 reais here just because. And it's
a double-edged sword because besides, with the bad campaigns, you lost money because you kept increasing the budget. The good campaigns, which sometimes had a budget of 2.5 but were selling, you didn't increase. In other words, you also missed out on earning from the good campaigns.
Yeah, because the guy is at 2.5. There, the campaign keeps spending. It was selling, kept it at 2.5. Instead
of increasing, kept it the same.
Yes.
It was a campaign that, damn, all right, even if the ROAS drops to 2.3, 2.2, but damn, you're still making a profit, man. If it's selling, increase it. You lose a little bit of margin, but you gain in the absolute profit you make. In the end.
Just so you understand, there were campaigns that were at 4 and dropped to 2.5.
We're talking about ROAS here, guys.
Yeah, about ROAS. And there were campaigns that were at 2.5 from the start and stayed at 2.5.
Yeah.
Which is the best campaign? The one that stayed at 2.5?
It stayed consistent and kept selling throughout the day.
Kept selling throughout the day, so this one is going to crush it in sales. The one that was at 4 and dropped to 2.5 means it went a long time without selling. The ROAS dropped. When you just look at the tracker and see ROAS at 2.5 and you only use that snapshot like it's a photo of the metrics, you're going to get the wrong impression.
You make the wrong decision. Or you miss out on increasing a campaign that was selling in the last few hours, even with a lower ROAS, but it's selling really well, and you increase the campaign budget. That had a ROAS of 5, dropped to 3, but you think it's good and still increase the budget, and it didn't sell anything. Yeah.
Because it's a campaign with a 1.9 ROAS, that's there, but it's already got a very high budget. So, I don't know, it's got a budget of 30, 40, 50,000 reais a day. But you look at a campaign with a 2.5 ROAS and few sales and a campaign with 1.9 or 2 with lots of sales. Which one was actually more worthwhile? to scale up.
Exactly.
If you just look at the snapshot, you'd say 2.5 is much better. But when you look at the whole movie of the campaign, the story of the
Campaign, the timeline.
campaign timeline, but then what was that like? We had that pain point.
Right.
So how did you solve that problem there?
How could you not? This
Here too, man, honestly, I think I've never heard anyone talk about this. Just us.
this one here.
Others must do it too. But
This one was awesome, man. Because what happens? In our tracker, we had the entire campaign history, hour by hour. Like from 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, how many sales happened, how much was spent at that time, cost per play, cost per click, everything. Everything in detail, hour by hour. I said, man, if I can get this onto a little server over there, that sets it up, that builds a profit graph for me. Instead of just looking at ROAS just at CPM, CPA, CPC, I created a graph that showed hour by hour how much profit I made during that time. From the previous hour up to the current hour. So, in the end, what did I have? A bar chart with all 24 hours of the day.
and
Then, hour by hour, it would add another bar. At noon, one more bar, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. In other words, I was able to see how much profit it generated in the last few hours, if there were sales, how many sales, what my CPA was in the last hours, and most importantly, what my profit was. If campaigns kept generating increasing profit, I would raise the budget. And campaigns where the profit was top. For example, I launched a campaign, it started running at 10 in the morning, and there was already a sale. That campaign made 2,000 reais in profit. So, great, 2,000 Brazilian reals, it must have a ROAS of 5.
yes.
All right, okay. Then 2 hours went by and you went to optimize. You'd already spent more money and you no longer had a 2,000 profit. Now you're left with a profit of 1,000. But then, damn, if you look at your manager, it's showing a ROAS of 4. What are you going to do? You're going to increase the budget. But no, man. It was at 2,000, then dropped to 1,000 reais in profit. You handed over money.
Spent 1,000 and still no sales?
Spent 1,000 reais without selling. Or it sold very little, like, I don't know, sold junk. Anyway. So we started to get this idea, this sense of tracking profit hour by hour. And understanding what action I would take in my campaign, whether to increase the budget, lower the budget, or pause the campaign, based on the history from the last few hours of the campaign. So for example, if it had 2,000 in profit in the first hour, damn, increase the budget. So right away, you already increased the budget for a campaign that's making sales. All right, another hour goes by. Did it manage to make another sale? No. Okay, let's keep it as is. Is it more or less breaking even? All right, let's keep it. Another hour goes by, no sales? Well, then I lower its budget. So I had a spreadsheet where I could look at each campaign individually, the graph for each one of them. And then, if there were 40, 50, 100 campaigns in a day, I would do this for all 100 campaigns. Back then, we didn't have all this AI that we have today. Now you can
Do it in an easier way, right?
Today, you could do it in a much easier way. But that's how I used to do it. I would check every hour, because then you run into that problem. I couldn't remember how much it was. Boas, there's no way. And I made wrong decisions because of that.
For those who've been in traffic for a while, I even gave this tip there, but it's a pretty rough tip. What was it? Leave the manager open on one page and on the other you go optimizing. Then when it was time to optimize, you hit F5 on one page and the other one stays static, or you would take a screenshot. The method he used was, man, every hour check 30 so you know what the profit was for each campaign and see if it went down or not. But come on, looking at the history in the spreadsheet, the graph, it's way better, right?
Now that you mentioned it, I think I figured out why people create the campaigns. Campaign 01, campaign 02, so they know which one is which, right? Is that what it's for? It must be for that, right?
To distinguish them,
Like, campaign 07 had this much, now it has this much. Maybe it's something along those lines.
probably.
What do they put? CP01, CP02? Yeah.
We didn't used to do it like that. We kept the campaign consolidated because you could check by the campaign ID.
Exactly.
But the ID is much harder to remember, right? A huge number there with 10 digits.
That's right.
Compared to campaign 13, today it's great. It's 13. Yeah,
Campaign.
7 is great.
Then it was all good, man. So I used this method, created a really cool chart, and the scale changed, right, man? That's when we started. We had a good offer. Everything was great. Everything was aligned. And the traffic, at the moment we created this chart, it became insane for us to scale.
I remember talking with the guys, like we were scaling, I don't know, 200, 300, 500 each day with a rows of 2.6, 2.7.
Our ROAS was extremely
high. And I would show the TMFI to some friend of mine or at some event gathering. I said, what are you doing? I said, my traffic is very optimized. We don't waste money on traffic. And they were scaling hard too, but always with ROAS of 1.8, 1.7. And we were scaling just the same, but with much higher ROAS. But why? Because we didn't throw money away. The money couldn't take it. It was unacceptable. We optimized to a level that didn't interfere with the traffic, which is that thing we talked about, giving it some room to...
Exactly. And all of this fits in with the rules we've already mentioned here now. All of this from the chart, together with the rules. Automated, and the only thing that required a decision was whether to increase, decrease, or pause, which was a decision I made at the time. So that was pretty much the only manual thing we did. The rest, like, if the play cost, you spent 100 rees and it's above a certain amount, boom, it would already cut it. If the pitch cost for that campaign was a certain amount, boom, it would cut it too. So I kind of had this help from an automated system, which, man, made my life so much easier. I've always been into this vibe of automating things, you know? Because, man, humans make a ton of mistakes, right? Especially me, man, I'm super forgetful. I would end up letting wrong metrics slip by. Like, even though I know what to do and how it works, because I'm forgetful, a bunch of mistakes would get through. You know what I mean? I used to say, man, I have to automate this. That's when I was like, man, set up the XYZ rule, the CPA, the play, the pitch, create the chart, so you can track it hour by hour visually, so you don't make mistakes.
And how did you do, for example, when scaling up, you're scaling up there day to day. Let's say take a scenario where you were scaling 200, 300,000 in a day. What was your routine like there? How did you keep track? A traffic manager has the mindset and behavior of someone who has really scaled up. Because I honestly don't know, you chat and all, but I don't know what your routine was like. When you woke up, what did you check? Were you always on your phone? Or did you just check it from time to time? What was it like?
Yes. Back then, what did I do? Besides managing the traffic, I was also the project manager for the company. So I had to handle the traffic and I had to manage the team as well. I had to see what the guys were doing, have meetings with them, and so on. So when it came to traffic itself, I had to automate as much as possible. So actually, I would go to sleep around there 2, 3 in the morning every day. That crazy time back then, until everything was automated. Sleeping every day at 3 or 4 in the morning while scaling up. Because normally, what happens? At midnight, people would log off, right? The people from other operations log off, the budget resets, and it stops there and starts again the next day. With a low budget, I didn't stop, man, because I had the graph from the last few hours. I kept the budget maxed out there, 200,000, 300,000 in the campaign budget, and it kept going as if it was just a normal continuation, as if the day had 30 hours. It kept going until 4 in the morning.
But how did you manage to see all that, right? Because in the manager itself, all the metrics would disappear.
Everything disappeared, didn't it?
On the trackers too, like once the night passed, everything disappeared. How did you know which campaign you were going to scale or not? Yeah.
I knew because I had those graphs that I had already set up with that in mind, right? Because I knew that, damn, at 1 a.m. it was still selling, at 2 a.m. too.
So you really looked at it as if the day had 30 hours. So for people to understand, there will be a little graph there that keeps going as if it were a normal day.
I had the last one. My graph had 24 hours, 24 bars, right? Each hour was a bar. Then I would create hour 25, the 25th hour of the day, the 26th, and keep going. Using the same graph I already had.
I see.
So I just kept scaling as usual. But then, why did I mention this? To explain why I used to go to bed late, right? To explain that I went to bed late, meaning I also had to wake up a bit later too. But then, in terms of how I scheduled the campaigns to run, first, right before going to sleep, I already had... No, actually, the next day. The next day, I would analyze what had run the previous day, so I'd wake up, I don't know, around 8 or 9 in the morning, wake up, and the first thing I'd do was check the scaling, right? So I'd grab the tracker right away and check it. I'd also open up the graphs I developed for my phone.
You'd see what you left running with a high budget?
Exactly, I'd see what I left running. There were, for example, campaigns that ended the day really well. We wouldn't kill them or reduce the budget.
Like,
if a campaign ended the day with a 100,000 reais budget, we might lower it a bit occasionally, so it wouldn't be extremely high. But I set up automated rules to kill the campaign in case something went really wrong, at night.
Several rules there as a contingency?
Contingency rules. For example, if this campaign spent 2,000 Brazilian reals and didn't make any more sales, alright, then we'd roll back the budget, but because it kept selling overnight, we'd leave it running. But anyway. I'd wake up, open up my dashboards early in the morning and check, damn, this creative needs a budget increase, this campaign, right? This campaign needs to be increased, lowered, or reduced, or paused, right? Usually, pausing was something the automated system would already do for me. Then I'd have a meeting with the team in the morning to decide which creatives performed well the day before. So we'd have that call first thing in the morning. Around 9:30 or 10 a.m., we'd look at all the creatives that ran the day before, which ones kept scaling smoothly, looking good, and which tests performed well or not. And I'd pass all that information on to the team. Copy team, editing team. I'd pass everything to them. Actually, it was just the copy team, right? Copy handled the editing. So I'd pass everything to the copy team and then the copywriters would coordinate with the editors. But I'd pass it along like this creative, we'd really look at the details. In those details of that creative, like retention rate and so on. So I'd pass everything to them, organize it all in a spreadsheet. And then they had everything in hand to take practical action, right? What do they do with this data we looked at? Hey, let's lateralize creative X. Let's stop running creative Y. Oops. Anyway. Let's run creative X, stop creative Y. And then we'd already decide which creatives to scale the next day. In other words, I would leave that meeting by 11 a.m. or noon, already knowing which creatives I was going to scale the next day. Most of them, right? Because sometimes by the end of the afternoon, another one would be validated, so there'd be one more. But by 11 a.m. or noon, I already knew what was going to start running at midnight that day.
Yes.
So, damn, it's going to be 3 creatives that we're going to scale. Awesome. Today we have the Bahian scaling, right? Which, damn, we'll get to the Bahian scaling later. Good. Let's talk about the CBO. Talk about the big CBO. All right then. I would decide everything there with the team. By noon, I already knew everything I had to run. And then I would already start kind of planning what I was going to launch the next day. So I already knew the creatives. Creative A, B, C, D. There will be scaling. Creative X, Y, Z will have testing. And then I would already start uploading things in the afternoon. In the afternoon, up until, when I say afternoon, by around 6 p.m., everything was usually uploaded already. Occasionally, on some days, if I validated a creative later, I would upload it as well. But then, so that was the routine, right? I'd wake up, have a meeting, check which creatives performed well, and analyze them. I'd look at the history, decide what I was going to run the next day starting at midnight. And I'd choose everything properly right there. Then, during the afternoon, that was when I handled the operational part of actually launching the campaigns on Facebook, right? And damn, that was boring as hell, man. Because...
Why was it boring?
No, it was boring because there were so many campaigns, man. We were running 4 or 5 offers at the same time. It was just me. It was just me, man. There were a ton of campaigns, a ton of creatives. Each offer had 20 creatives, 15 creatives. Hey, damn, man, I had to go up. It was... Man, and I am... These repetitive tasks, man, they piss me off. I say, man, this could be automated. Then Elko said, Luca, we can't automate this thing. Look, direct chat is coming up. Can you automate this thing, man? Well, we tried once. Actually, I tried by myself, but it didn't work out, right, man? Then a month went by. I was struggling, launching campaigns manually, all that stuff. Then Elko said, Luca, man, are you sure we can't automate this, man? I said, man, I've already tried here, damn it. Then he said, man, let's do this thing. So he started working on a pilot, him at his house, me at mine, both of us on a call. We spent 2 days on it, right, man? Yeah. Automating this damn thing. We spent 2 days there, just grinding away nonstop. Then the first one came out. No, actually, before that, I started with the CSV. Before creating an automation that would upload everything by itself, we thought, hey, let's upload using a CSV on Facebook. It was a little spreadsheet where we put all the IDs, pixel and everything. It was
all messed up.
We would export a real campaign, one that already existed on Facebook. We'd export it. And we even used the post ID, right, man?
Yeah.
And it was super easy because we'd take a creative. Already approved, we'd use the post ID, which is the dark post, right? In that CSV spreadsheet, it already had the post ID for that ad. Already validated, already approved. And then we just replicate it to several accounts using a CSV. So then, damn, we'd upload it to the account with a kind of semi-automatic CSV, so to speak. And then in the ad account itself, I just had to duplicate the campaigns several times.
Yeah.
It was easier because it was a 3-to-1, right? So there weren't that many ad sets. You could even do it manually. Facebook didn't freeze up as much. But still, it was a lot of accounts, right? Because there were a lot of offers. And even semi-automated, it still took a good 2 or 3 hours to upload everything.
Yeah.
Before doing it manually, it took about 6 hours to upload everything. It was all manual, it took a lot of time. But later, with CSV, it probably dropped to about 4 hours. Then after we created DirectAds, it dropped to 5 minutes.
That's a bit of a change.
At the time, since the code was still pretty raw, it dropped to about 1 hour more or less. But damn, compared to the 5 or 6 hours I used to spend, man, it dropped to 1 hour. And why 1 hour? Because I still had to plan out a CSV, more or less. But then I was already able to set the number of campaigns in each account, the link for each account, and then I just hit enter on the script. So it was more about the work of defining and grabbing the pixel codes from each account.
Yeah.
You had to organize all that, right? But that's when we actually started to automate things, right? Because man, running the team, handling the traffic all by myself, it was the operational side that was tough, you know? It was a lot of time doing things manually. That's when we automated things and the first pilot project for DirectAds came up, which we only used internally, right?
Yeah.
We used it for over a year just for ourselves, right?
Yeah, for quite a while.
That was actually when the Bahian Scale came up, the 1.511.
Yeah, you didn't have to deal with that, right? No.
I didn't. Actually, by then we had already hired some managers. I caught the very beginning of the Bayana. We had already put some managers in place who were already using our code to launch things automatically, right there. And then, man, it was super easy for them, right? They scaled up extremely fast. There were operations you mentioned where, man, the guys would spend, I don't know how many hours a day there.
6-8 hours.
Wait, you're not struggling with the Bahian scale then? No, man. Scaling up just fine here.
I really didn't struggle, no. Me neither. When I say I didn't struggle, neither me nor the managers. Because the manager didn't freeze up.
No, everything was uploaded automatically from the computer. It was all lines of code. Python, everything, pure code, really. But then, man, when the Bayana came up, we handled it easily, right? Everything was already organized there in the code. I think that was it, man. Let me see if there's any other detail.
I think just the traffic journal. And what was the highest budget you managed to put into a campaign?
Wow, those were crazy times, man.
What did it feel like? How did you deal with the emotions and all that?
There were days when we made 1 million in a day, there were campaigns. Not just on the days we hit 1 million, but there were days, man, with campaigns. Already using those charts and all, profit per hour. There were times when we had campaigns with 500, 600,000 reads like that, man. You managed
Fun 600K campaign?
one campaign.
News to me.
One campaign, man. One campaign. And then, damn, usually it was one campaign like with 70% of the budget. And 2 others there with 15% of the budget each.
Was that more early on or later in the day?
No, we usually started the day with about 2,500 reais budget per campaign. Then in the first hour of the day, which was when I woke up around 9 or so, 10.
10, 20 campaigns at 2,500 each?
There were more, man. Way more, like, I don't know, man. There was like 80 campaigns, 90, 100, depending on the day. So,
Kind of like 80 times 2, that's 160. Times half. That's already 220,000 reais in planned spending for the day, right?
already planned spending, but most didn't end up spending all that because there was the plays rule, the pitch rule, which would cut it off automatically. But that's pretty much it, already with the initial daily budget.
We would spend there, when we had a plan to spend 260,000 in a day, the revenue was kind of proportional, wasn't it? Like it would hit around a ROAS of 2. If we were planning to spend 260, we were already going to make 500.
Sometimes it was more.
More with higher rows?
It was more because we managed to get those campaigns where we put in a lot of budget. So there was a campaign here on the day, man. Like if I looked at the actual spend of the campaign that day, it was like, man, 200,000 reais, 300,000 reais on a single campaign in one day.
One campaign, man. A single campaign spent 200,000 reais.
That was crazy, man.
That was crazy.
Man, I had those charts, you know? And I would keep track of the spending hour by hour. And this one...
Didn't you track this 1 hour by hour?
No, that one, man, it had to be like my child, man.
You tracked it 5 minutes at a time.
Right? This one I was checking every 5 minutes.
Was there any loss there that you didn't tell me about?
The ones that happened, I told you. The ones that happened, I sent them to you right away.
What was the biggest loss? You were running it and suddenly it just shot up. The spending? Or did you forget?
Facebook.
No.
Facebook, man. Sometimes it really does just shoot up. So for example, there were days when we had a profit of, I don't know, let me pick a good day here. A profit of 300,000 raise in a single day. Real profit, not revenue. Because like I said, I was tracking the profit. Those 300,000 in profit was what exactly? About 800,000 in sales. Anyway, revenue of just over 2 million. All right, 300,000 in profit, man. What would Facebook do, that rascal? There were days when it would just take off. But then, what was the problem? I had campaigns with a 500,000 budget, 600,000. So what would sometimes happen? Out of nowhere, in 15 minutes, it would spend 100,000 rees.
100,000 raise in 15 minutes.
It did.
It spent 100,000 rees in 15 minutes.
Spent it?
Oh my god.
It spent 100,000 rees in 15 minutes. So what happens? Since it spent it all at once, it didn't always show it to the right audience. Sometimes the algorithm would go crazy and blast it out to a huge crowd. Man, that was the talk about our droplet at the time. It would cause some processing spikes. Then you'd say, oh my god, this droplet is going to crash.
For those who don't know, that's the server.
Yeah, so many people would hit the server that I was afraid the site would go down. But thank God everything went smoothly.
So man, when it happened to you for the first time, what did you do first?
Thing I did was send a screenshot to L. Man, the thing is, I suddenly spend 150 grand here, man.
Don't hide the traffic logs. See the lesson here. Don't hide what's going on here.
Tell them.
Man. Explaining later is worse.
Damn, man, I spend 150 grand out of nowhere, man.
Did you think about cutting back? Or did you say, no, I'll pay to see how much it is?
That's the rational thing to do. At the time, you cut back, right, man? You say, damn, man, 15 minutes. Spent all that. I'm screwed, man.
Yeah. Because you have to wait 40, 50 minutes, which is the time for... It's an hour, actually. That's the buying time, right?
For the guy to watch your VSL video, for him to get to the checkout, grab his credit card, enter it.
By the way, there's something we didn't used to do, and I think that... Who does that? I think Rodrigo, who was here yesterday, there's no water there.
Rodrigo.
I wonder who was here yesterday. Let me take a quick look right here. Turn it down. That is much better now.
Nice.
I think he told me that in Los Cabos, something we didn't used to do. Actually, we still don't. He put something like Google Analytics on the site or another audience tracker. And he sees how many people are on the site at that moment.
Real time? Yeah.
Real time. So based on that, he checks if like that spike that happened, he checks if like we never thought about that. And he said, man, how did we never think of that? It makes a lot of sense. Because there was a spike. You'll have a ratio there. Like you spend 1,000 REAs. Usually there are 100 people, for example.
And
those people stay on the site at that moment. So you could create some kind of metric like that.
I kind of had that with the cost per play. Because it would spike, right?
The cost per play would get really expensive.
It got expensive, man, because it was shown to a lot of people. That's the thing. Google Analytics would be a little better in that regard.
It would be more accurate, right? To know exactly how many people are still on the site.
Exactly, because the cost per play could have gone up for two reasons. Either the site couldn't handle it, and the person didn't even load the site.
The site crashed.
The site crashed. Or because it really reached a bad audience, so the person doesn't even play the video and so on. But with Google Analytics, it could be even more accurate. That's an interesting idea.
Cool, right? So here's another tip from Rodrigo, who by the way will have his own episode soon. Editor put his episode in the description, which will be released soon as well.
Man, I used to spend 150,000 in 15 minutes. I'd say, my God, man. A ton of people would come in. Like I'd put it up, I don't know, man. I'd get 9,000 people on the site at once, just like that. 10,000 people.
Crazy.
Crazy, man. Then I'd say, damn, now we just have to hope, right, man? Then I'd quickly lower the budget, right? I'd turn it off. Actually, I didn't even lower it. I'd just turn off the campaign, man.
I'd turn it off.
It's better, man, because what if I leave it at 2,000 and this thing keeps going? I'd turn off the campaign, man. I'd turn off the campaign. The good campaign, the one with a ROAS of 2.3, spending about 100 grand a day. You have to
dare to leave a campaign like that running. It costs money to give back all the day's profit.
Then later we started turning it back on, man. Then
restarted.
Went bad. Then damn. We'd turn off the campaign and just be spectators, right? Waiting for the sales to come in from the people who landed on the page.
After a while, like an hour later, the phone notifications were sales every minute. Sales every second.
Every 3 or 4 seconds there was a sale, man. It was surreal when that happened.
It felt like a launch.
It felt like a launch, man. Like when you open the cart and it just starts firing off. It was crazy. You didn't always recover, right? Sometimes
You took hits.
the profit level there, like when we had those bursts of 150,000, we still took about a 20,000 loss, man. We recovered well, but there was still it always ended in a loss. But compared to the day's profit, I don't think there was a single day that ended in the red because of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes I was with, I don't know,
Making 400,000 profit today.
I was, I don't know, 200,000 in profit for the day, 300.
I'd take a hit.
You lose 20 points,
Yeah, there were some hard hits, so there was
then you start to change, right? It sounds like some absurd numbers because they really are. But do you kind of get used to these numbers and they just become numbers or not? Every time you're on an adrenaline rush.
no, in the beginning it was unreal. You'd say, "Damn, man, we sold 700,000 in a day, 500,000 raise in a day. Damn, that's a lot of money." Like later you get used to it, but you still know it's a lot of money, you know? Yeah.
You,
Say, "Damn, but it's a lot of money." But you do get a bit calmer about it. Especially because, damn, you're looking at the day's profit. You say, "Damn, I'm at 400,000 in profit for the day. Damn, I took a hit like that of 100,000, 50,000. All right, we got screwed, but we're still way up, you know?" So that was kind of it, man. The important thing was not to end the day itself getting screwed with a loss for the day, you know? That was the most important thing. So yeah, we took a hit and we kind of tried to come up with ways to prevent it from happening again, right?
yeah,
We never managed to. Because Facebook was unpredictable with that, right? There was no way to predict when it would go off. Yeah.
it would just go off and spend. You'd hit F5 on the page and it had already spent.
Man, it was a shock, man. What a scare it gave us, man.
Just imagine.
There was a campaign there, man. 500,000 budget, ROAS of 2.2, tons of profit, over 100 grand profit on the campaign. Out of nowhere, you hit F5, a campaign that had 100 grand profit that day, suddenly minus 50,000. 50,000 in losses on the campaign.
Oh, wow.
You just go, holy shit, man. Holy
Shit. Holy.
shit. What happened? Man, you can't believe it, right? You think the platform glitched, man.
Right.
You think, damn, this thing glitched, man. Then you hit T5. You say, I'll open it on my phone. Open it there. Same thing. You say, no way, man. Then you open it on Facebook. Facebook, same thing. You say, no way, man. It can't be. Then you turn everything off. Turn off the campaign.
That was during the CBO days. Good times. I miss those days.
Yeah, I miss it. I really do.
You used to scale up and then later you stepped back a bit. Cars, you trained more as the head of traffic there.
Yeah, then we automated a lot of things and started hiring, right? Automated.
There with ours at the time, it wasn't even direct ads yet, right? It was more like it was direct ads, like our internal MVP, more than a year with the tool, right? And then you hired, right? You became the head of traffic, but you still knew it was when we started scaling the Bayana.
Yes.
Why didn't your team at the time struggle with that Bayana? What did you already have that was different from the market?
At the time, we had developed that Python script, which would automatically upload campaigns. It would already pull from the file on your computer itself. You just needed to make sure the naming was correct in the offer folder. So we had offer 98, the name of the offer, offer 98. You'd say, damn, I have 20 creatives to upload tomorrow. I said, damn, doing it by hand, you have to upload the file to Facebook. So what did we do? We automated a Python script that uploads to Facebook through their official server.
The
What did we use to do?
API, right?
All through the API, through the server. You didn't even need to open the manager. You just needed to have the card on the account, right? Open the manager literally just to put the credit card on the account. And then you'd monitor it through the little system I created there. But anyway, offer 98. You'd put the creatives in there, like 90 creatives. Well, not 90. 20 test creatives or the 3 scaling creatives you're going to upload for the next day. Anyway, I'd put the creatives in the folder. I'd go to my spreadsheet, which I used to upload this CSV, but later I really improved it. It became much easier. I just needed to put the destination link. So what would I put in this spreadsheet? There was a column for the creative's name, another column for that creative's link, and another column that I'd fill in the ad account and the pixel.
Yes.
And then the code itself would already understand. The code itself knew, damn, it's this file. It goes to such and such account with so many campaigns, with so many ad sets. But at the time we used CBO 131.
Yes.
In other words, in my spreadsheet, it already had
Option 131, 511.
exactly. In the code line, which was the number of campaigns, it would just be 1 or 10, depending on how many ad campaigns I wanted. In the ad set column, it was 3 because it was the original CBO 131, right?
Yes.
So the day the Bahian scaling came up, I had to change it because instead of being CBO, it was ABO.
Changed it there to ABO.
Simple, extremely simple. Change it so that the budget, instead of being at the campaign level, was at the ad set level.
Yes.
So I would put in $1 there.
$1,
And instead of 3 ad sets per campaign,
50.
50. In other words, it was a change that we implemented overnight and it's running automatically. The Bahian, basically that's what we did, right?
That's it, folks. So this is the premiere episode of Traffic Secrets. We're only going to bring traffic managers here who have really gotten their hands dirty, who have been on the battlefield, got involved hands-on, and can share real experiences about how traffic works day to day, what the behavior is like, what the strategies are. How can you become a better traffic manager than you already are? So if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe here, give us a like, take this episode and share it in your traffic manager groups. Because you can be sure that this episode is going to be the biggest traffic manager episode in Brazil, maybe even in the world, all right? We're in this together. And this is Traffic Secrets.